Hey everyone, good afternoon. I am just getting everything set for all of us to watch, and then we are going to start shortly. When you come in the room, say hello, put your name in the comments so that we can shout you out. All right, and let me make sure we are live on YouTube. And then we will be ready to get started on time. All right. All right. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Let me turn off my phone because that's when people call because they got something to say. Child, we see you. And I'm like, yeah, that's fabulous. Now, can you please be quiet? All right. Come on in the room. Oh, look at all the comments. Come on, comments. Hello, Soror. Hello, Attorney Celeste. Hello, Simone Gaucher. Happy Friday. Oh, one of my babies is on here. Hey, Scholar, how you doing? Hello, Brother Marcus. Hello, Lady Caprice. I was just talking about you because you were the first guest on Legaleaze, Please. And that is no small feat. So we thank you for being you. All right. So good afternoon. This is High Noon High. Just want to say hello to you all. Thank you for being here. This is Legaleaze, Please. My name is Natasha Robinson. I am the creator and curator of this space. Legaleaze, Please is a digital platform where we seek to decode, demystify, and deconstruct legal language. And so this is an opportunity for us to take a little over an hour, about an hour or so, and just get into conversation where we are able to not only approach the intersectionality of law and other disciplines, but to talk about the integration of law and to make sure that we understand that there is a working relationship and a working interaction between law and so many other topics that we see in our everyday life. And today we are going to be talking about the intersection and integration of law and mental health. All right. So if you are here, please click like, love, and then share it on your pages. Make sure that it's public so that everyone can see you. As I stated, we are not only on Facebook Live, but we are also on YouTube. So if you are watching us on YouTube or if you feel led to, please go over to YouTube and hit subscribe, because the more subscribers that we have, then the more goodies that I can give to you all. And I also want to show you something else. If you see in your screen, you should see the logo for Legaleaze, Please. Okay. That is evidence of your gifts, of your investments being funneled back into the business so that we can continue to help and bless others. And so you know me by now. We try not to be before you long or be before you unprofessionally. And so this is an opportunity for us to see that Endinkra symbol, which means he who does not know. And we use that Endinkra symbol because life is about learning. And if you stop learning, or if you turn off the ability to learn at any point, you could be cutting your own self off from getting the formal and informal education. Because remember, education does not just occur in the academy. It occurs on the street. Okay. It occurs when Big Mama is sitting down and sharing some wisdom with you. It's when you see someone in the grocery store and they're sharing information with you. So we do not place in a hierarchy formal education over informal education. It's learning. Okay, it's learning. And even though we do not place a hierarchy, we also recognize those who have gone through the formal training and the formal acquisition of loans, okay, and the formal ability to get the training, so that not only is the training used for them, but that we get the training so that we can provide it to you. And no one should be a sole owner of information or knowledge. If anything, it should come to you and come through you so it can be provided to other people. So we just thank you for being here. Just by way of housekeeping, you know, I am all about supporting Black business. And even because Black History Month is ending, technically, that does not mean that our support or our knowledge should be ending. Okay. And it's not only about Black history, it is also about Black presence and about Black futures. Okay. So these are the type of platforms, and these are the individuals who I will introduce in a moment, that are providing information to you so that we as a community can continue to grow. All right. So the first Black business that I want to highlight is my good sister and coach, Dr. Irie Session, who is the beautiful soul who created the logo that you see on your screen. If you wish to have classes or learn about content, or to be coached, or to be counseled, please go to https:// Dr. Irie. That stands for Dr. Irie Sessions. She is not only the entrepreneur of Dream Big, she is also the co-pastor of The Gathering, which is a womanist church with womanist ethics and theology, which is in Dallas, Texas. So go on over to that side of the internet, check her out. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. The second Black business, they don't know I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it now, is Divinity 7. Now, I am very strategic about what I do. So I have on right now my own purchased shirt. You may not be able to see it, but it's a D and then it's a 7 in the middle. Now, Divinity 7 is located in Roosevelt Court. That's what I call it. I don't know if that's what it's called, but it's in on Roosevelt Street, in that area where the Container Store and the movie is. I'll get an address later, but for right now, all you need to know is in Chicago. That is one of the blessed and one of the best Black businesses period, that have great attire for you. So go on over to that side of the internet, and then go to Delano Court. That's where it is. Delano Court in Chicago. You see this? Ain't this nice? See, it's got Divinity 7. Okay. And so you go to that website. You will also hear from the co-owner of Divinity 7, because that is one of our guests for today. And then last but not least, we have Black business, Nia's House. Okay. Nia's House is a full holistic place, digital and in person, where you can get the whole person treated. Okay, your mind, your body, and your soul. Because if anyone tells you they are separate, they are a liar, and the truth is not in them. That's my grandmama old school thing. But you will also hear from one of the people who you would meet, the creator and founder of Nia's House, because guess what? She is a member here too. She is our guest today too. And so they're going to talk a little bit about that, but I just wanted to highlight those three businesses. You have Dr. Irie, you have Divinity 7 with Dr. Will, and then you have Nia's House with Dr. Clark. All right, so we're getting ready to get started. Let me go to the comments and say hello, Dr. Kimberly. Hello, my scholar. Hello, Bishop Brown. How you doing? Hey, Soror, how you doing? Good morning. Good morning, Reverend Sherry, Coach Sherry. Thank you so much. All right, so as I said, hit like, hit love, hit share this on your platform so that we can get this good information. So now I have given, as they say in church, all minds are clear. Now we're going to bring on our guests. And so now I am going to bring on both of my peers who are here. We have, I don't know what it looked like on your screen, but on my screen to my right, no, this way. Okay, this way, we have Dr. Marlena Clark and we have Dr. Karen Witherspoon. I'm trying to see where your names went. Your names went somewhere, but I don't know where they went. But we'll make sure that everyone will get your information. It was something I was getting ready to do. Oh, I know what I was getting ready to do. I was going to read your bios and tell the people about who you are. Okay. So Dr. Clark, I am going to start with you first. Dr. Clark's bio is as follows. Dr. Marlena Clark is the founder and chief healing officer of Nia's House, a mental health nonprofit working to provide mental health equity to the underserved, underinsured, and uninsured. She is a licensed counselor and counselor educator, with 12 years of experience supporting holistic healing for adults and children, managing racial, spiritual, psychological, and physical trauma. She earned, okay, please be clear, she earned her BA in psychology from Hampton University and her Master's of Arts in Clinical Counseling, as well as a PhD in Counselor Education and Supervision from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. Dr. Clark is also the CEO of Above Productions, an online educational wellness resources to help you overcome the psychological impact of toxic cultural norms. She is also a believer, singer, and loving wife, daughter, sister, and friend. So we welcome Dr. Marlena Clark. Thank you so much for being here. And then we have the bio of Dr. Karen Witherspoon. HELP LLC's co-owner and chief clinical officer is Dr. Karen Witherspoon, a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Illinois who has thousands of clinical hours performing assessments with children and adults. Her clinical specialty is assessment and testing, which includes psychological evaluations, disability determinations, parenting capacity assessments, and serving as the judge's 604B expert in child custody evaluations through domestic relations court. 604B, that's the part in the statute that describes what she does and how she does it well. She also conducts psychotherapy with adolescents and adults. Dr. Witherspoon serves as the clinical supervisor at HELP to ensure that all licensed eligible staff receive an appropriate level of clinical supervision, to provide fidelity monitoring of the quality of clinical services offered, to assist the clinicians in achieving productivity goals, and to help assure that clinical staff are guided by the mission of the organization and its policies. Dr. Witherspoon is also a tenured professor, published author, and grant writer who has served as a past president of the Chicago chapter and a member at large on the National Executive Board of the Association of Black Psychologists. Dr. Witherspoon graduated. She has an earned degree from Loyola University, Chicago, where she obtained a Master's of Arts in Community Counseling and a PhD in Counseling Psychology. Her teaching philosophy is based on the process of encouraging learners to make connections between their experiences and the subject matter. She also believes that focusing on the processes of learning leads to greater outcomes. Dr. Witherspoon's expertise in research includes survey research method, scale development, and program evaluation. Her statistical skills and experience are in descriptive statistics and correlational analytical techniques. Her research interests are in the area of racial identity, self-efficacy, and the relationship between mental health and oppression. Dr. Witherspoon's previous research was funded through a National Institute of Mental Health grant to study the role of oppression in the psychological functioning of African Americans. So we welcome Dr. Witherspoon as well. Okay. Now, I read every bit of their bio, even though they told me to redact it and make it small. I read it on purpose because we need to know that we are out here. Okay. We are out here professionally and we are out here in service, giving back to our community. The other thing I want you to know is, as I said before, even though we don't rank formal and informal education, please understand between the three of us, we have 9 earned degrees. All right. So it's not about us being funny, acting, or highfalutin, as my granddaddy used to say. It is about us getting the education along with. So education in addition to the support from our community and our experiences. So let me shut up so that they can get started. I am going to let you all know if you have questions that are in your mind, please put them in the comment section so that we can address them and make sure that we are not ignoring any of you all at any time. Okay. Oh, there are the names. There we go. Okay. Come on, Spirit. All right. So here is the first question. I want to start us with the conversation around breathing in the context of the intersection and integration of criminal law and mental health. The last words that Eric Gardner, who was murdered by New York police officers, said was, "I can't breathe." So my first question to you is, how do we breathe? How do we breathe literally? How do we breathe figuratively? How do we breathe in a society where our breath seeks to strategically and systematically be snatched? How do we do that? Whoever wants to go first, I will focus on you.
I'll go ahead and address this question first.
Okay.
So, how do we breathe? The first thing that comes to mind, and as you mentioned, and thank you for mentioning Nia's House and what we do as a mental health nonprofit, but we focus on the whole being. And so when you think about the holistic self, breathing is essential to your life. And, you know, it grieves me to be reminded of the tragedy and of the murder of Eric Garner, and thinking about how collectively, in a sense, we all lost our breath. So how do we regain that? How do we get to a place where we are able to breathe through the continued oppression, the continued just ignorance, the mismanagement of our beings? The first thing is to stay connected to something outside of yourself, something outside of this world. Some people call it spirit, some people call it universe, some people call it God. But having that connection from where your breath comes. And that, for me, that's where my breath comes from God. So knowing that, it's a reminder, like, this life was given to you. So yes, stay connected, stay in tune with God so that you can breathe through anything. The next is to be conscious about mental, emotional, and your physical sensations. So kind of a grounding. When you notice that you're watching the news, you're hearing somebody share a story about, another Black person who's been murdered by the police, or, some kind of racial incident has happened, racial oppression. Taking a moment to take inventory. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? And how are those translating into your body? So if you feel tension, I tend to feel my tension in my stomach, and I tend to feel it in my jaw. I clench my jaw. And so if I notice that my jaw is aching, or if I notice that my stomach is tight, I'm not breathing well. And so being in tune with that allows me to get back to that holistic space again of reminding myself, I belong to God. Breathe. I
Mm-hmm.
got permission immediately to,
Yeah.
when I was brought into this world, to breathe. And
Yeah.
then making that connection between mind, body, and emotion to be able to say, okay, I'm tense. Let me relax. Let me be conscious of my breath and take time to come back into a space of some kind of peace, some kind of stability.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Dr. Witherspoon, could you chime in and tell us your thoughts about that, please?
Sure, sure. I'll add to those comments so I can ditto to everything that Dr. Clark said, but also, too, in terms of just thinking about that statement of I can't breathe. It is such a powerful analogy as you think about it, because it's something that we don't necessarily always think about because we're breathing automatically. And when you stop breathing, then you become aware of it. But really, as we think about sort of practicing, healing today, and particularly talking about practicing healing for those of us who are doing the work to eradicate oppression, those of us who are doing the work to dismantle systems of oppression and injustices that are happening to people, you have to even be intentional about breathing. And so, just very quickly, if I could ask everyone, wherever you are, to place your hands on your stomach right now. One of the things that happens when you're anxious, when you go into fight and flight mode, you actually oftentimes hold your breath. Have you ever been in a situation where you don't know what you're going to anticipate, or there's some ambiguity of some sort? You actually tend to hold your breath. And so if you put your hand on your stomach, when you breathe in, you actually want to push your stomach muscles out. So really, we're talking about breathing from the diaphragm. Most people, when they think about taking a deep breath and they breathe in and they suck their stomach in, that actually can cause you to go into hyperventilation. It actually is tension building rather than tension releasing. And so you want to breathe in a way that's going to dissipate anxiety, dissipate intention. So put your hands on your stomach. When you breathe in, take a deep breath, push your stomach out. Hold it. 2 to 3 seconds is enough, and then let it go. Now, when you let it go, your stomach should go down. It should, your stomach should go in. And then I want you to visualize as you're letting that breath out, whatever is causing you angst, whatever you're worrying about, whatever your fear is, let it go with the breath.
Mm. All right. That is definitely a helpful tool and tactic, because a lot of times, as you both have shared, you don't even know that your breathing has stopped, because some of the visuals that we see, some of the images, I'm a person who believes that we consume not just with our mouth, but we consume with our eyes, we consume with our ears, we consume with our presence. So in the times in which we are living now, where we are bombarded with all types of images, where while we know it's important to be informed, we also know what can happen if we ingest so much trauma through the news, or just seeing killings and murders, and seeing miscarriages of justice, where we think finally someone is going to be held accountable and they are not. How do we balance that? How do we balance being informed but also being rejuvenated enough to continue the freedom and the social justice work? Dr. Witherspoon, I'll start with you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. My question is, what can we do to offer ourselves care in the midst of the freedom and social work, social justice work that we do?
Okay, okay. Um, the first thing that I would sort of think of is you talk about doing the work, and it's sort of about making space for your own healing. So many of us get into social service professions, education professions, healthcare professions because we want to help. There's some messages that we've learned that have been passed down from generations of strong men and women in our family. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes some of those messages get a little bit confused, that we have to be long suffering and downtrodden, and that, there's always a good fight. And so unfortunately, we've kind of flipped it. And so sometimes we wear this sort of suffering as a badge of honor, if you will. And so
Mm,
I'm here to tell you today that there's no honor in being tired all the time. There's no honor in walking around and not enjoying your loved ones because you're so constantly doing things for others that you're not taking care of yourself. So making space for your own healing is really, really an important part of doing work for others. What is it on the airplane, right? They tell you to
yeah.
uh,
Put the
put
mask
your
on.
own mask on first before you try to help someone else. And so,
Yeah.
that's sort of kind of like a practical analogy of it. And so, related to that, in terms of people working in mental health and law, it's sort of like have professional boundaries, set
Mm,
boundaries for yourself in terms of what you're going to take on, and only take on those things that you feel are connected to some broader mission or value or beliefs that, in terms of you're supposed to be. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
you're not supposed to help everybody. That's what we say at Help. Help is an acronym for the agency name. But yeah, we make decisions about, we're being intentional about who we're helping.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Clark, in your practice, tell us how can we engage in being, to go churchy in the world, but not of it. How do we make
Absolutely.
sure that we are working within the trauma, but we are not absorbing in unbalanced amounts the trauma that we seek to stop?
Yeah. As Dr. Witherspoon stated, you have to have boundaries, and your boundaries are definitely need to be professional. You also need to have personal boundaries. Um, Oftentimes, people jokingly ask me if I am, my husband's therapist and things like that, and I immediately reject that. Like, no, never. Not only that, but none of my family members or friends, and it's not because I don't love y'all. It's because
Mm-hmm.
that's an inappropriate boundary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have to be intentional with your time and with how you care for yourself. So,
Mm-hmm.
one of the, speaking to personal boundaries again, you have your professional boundaries set up so that you're intentional about who you're helping. And that's a very real thing. Dr. Witherspoon, I'm glad that you mentioned this idea of we take on a mantle of suffering and serving everyone to the detriment of our own selves. But we can't be of any good to anyone if we beat ourselves down,
Mm-hmm.
and if we don't care for ourselves. So having those boundaries and knowing this is who I'm here to serve at this time and in this season, this is who I'm not. And then with your personal boundaries, knowing when to cut off work. This is especially helpful, and I'll share a tip for this COVID environment where you can work all day long because a lot of us are still working from home.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we're doing in our practice at Nia's house is we're doing telehealth. So it's very easy to get lost. So some of my personal boundaries are, you know what, when I start getting really tired, or when words start, I'm seeing them cross-eyed, that's a personal boundary I need to make. I need to cut off
Mm-hmm.
work.
Mm-hmm.
I have
Mm-hmm.
a couple of businesses. I can work all day and night, but that's not healthy for me. I'm not
Yeah.
going to serve people well if I'm burnt out. So setting up boundaries so that you're avoiding things like burnout. Some of the signs of burnout are that you're constantly tired, that you're more irritable than usual, that you're finding yourself less compassionate. That's a whole nother term, but you're finding yourself less caring and compassionate for the needs of those around you, particularly your loved ones. Set up
Mm-hmm.
that small boundary. Work ends at 7 o'clock. Work ends at 5. I don't work on the weekends. Or I give myself a day off or two during the week. I take more than a couple of days off so that I can rest and relax and care for myself.
Thank you so much. I structure these questions because I believe usually when we have discussions about law and mental health, we start with them and then we work to us. And so I switched it around so that we could work on ourselves first, starting with the individual and then moving to the communal. So now that we are talking about how we can, prep ourselves and set ourselves up. Let's talk about our interaction and intersection and integration with others. I want to shift to something that you said, Dr. Clark, about us living in the pandemic. It has been a year now since our lives have been, turned upside down in every way that we could possibly imagine, and in some ways that we cannot. How do we, in the age of COVID-19, COVID-16-19, and every other pandemic that is presenting itself to us, how do we help to support those who are struggling, including us, either by way of diagnosed or undiagnosed mental illness? I know that for some people who may be living alone, or some people who may be incarcerated, or some people who may be taking their medication, this entire pandemic is exacerbating the intensity and the need to get more support. So what can we do, and what should we refrain from doing in these times?
I can go ahead and start
Sure.
off with that one.
Because my
Excuse me.
questions be a little long sometimes, so just cut me off.
Never that. Um, so we're all long-winded. We
Yeah.
have a lot to give back. We have a lot to give back. We didn't earn 9 degrees amongst the three of us just for our own sake. We did it for the community.
Listen, talk about it. Go
So
ahead.
that, and actually, that's as funny as it is. That's one thing that we can do to look out for ourselves and one another, is use the skills that we have, the gifts that we have, to recognize when others aren't recognizing their own gifts or using them. So if you notice, I know as a mental health professional, I'm more in tune with people's emotional well-being. So I can notice a subtle change in somebody's day-to-day emotional um, regulation, management, etc. That is a clue to me that's, oh, you know what, they're a little off. Something's going on with them. So I might do a check-in via text, might do a check-in over the phone, virtually, or on a FaceTime or something like that. So I can see, like, hey, what's really going on with you? Let me at least see your face so I can get an idea. The other thing is, you can use that same skill for yourself. You know your ins and outs, your day to day, your regular, quote unquote, normal way of being, and you know when you're feeling off. And even if you're feeling slightly off, it's important to, sometimes we can ignore the particulars or the details. And I think right now in this COVID environment, it's more important to pay attention to those details and particulars, because sometimes it's a subtle change that can spiral into something bigger. So if you notice that more days than usual for you, you're not laughing, you're not doing the things that you love doing. For me, that's singing. So if I notice that I go a couple of days without singing or humming, wait a minute, something's off. I got to do a check-in. I check in with myself, check in with God, check in sometimes with people around me if necessary. For those who are alone, um, be mindful of how you stay connected to your community. Though we can't do the familiar fellowship of being around each other, hugging and talking and doing the things that are natural for us, we can still stay connected. Sometimes that's through social media. Sometimes that's through a phone call. Sometimes that's through a Zoom conversation or a FaceTime conversation or a Google Duo. Like, you need to see somebody's face, because you're not seeing other people when you're in lockdown days on end. Um, and also being mindful of and using the opportunity, again, if you're somebody who's living alone in this, using the opportunity to get more in tune with who you are. Use the opportunity to maybe hone into some gifts or some hobbies that you didn't really, you knew that you liked it, but you didn't have time to explore. Take some time to explore. That's a good way to do some self care. Um, Take some time to pull up and dust off that old hobby that you used to do back in the day, but pre-COVID, when you were out doing all the things that you love to do, you didn't have time for it. That can revive parts of yourself. It can
Mhm.
again get you in tune with yourself again, and it helps to shift your outlook. If your outlook is starting to be very dreary and doom and gloom, that's a sign that you might be dealing with some depression, a major depressive episode. You may be dealing with some anxiety. It may be situational. But nonetheless, if you're starting to notice that your mood is gearing towards the unhealthy, the negative, this is never going to end kind of thoughts, take that time to again get in tune with yourself. Try to pull out some things that maybe you're already gifted at and you've set aside, or you want to try just for the sake of trying it. Stay connected with community in any way, shape, or form that you can. And of course, if you need help, don't be afraid to reach out for yourself. There are lots of resources that you can use, that are online, that are low touch kind of resources where you can check in with a therapist, a licensed therapist. You can check in with a coach and say, you know what, I'm feeling off and I'm not able to pull myself out of this. My community doesn't have the ability or the skill to help me through this, so I need some more professional help. There's no shame in that. This idea of we got to be strong, we got to be tougher, we got to be better. We're only as strong as, in my belief, as our communities. We're only as strong as the folks who came before us, our ancestors. We're only as strong as that family dynamic that we inherently kind of build and develop. So
Mhm.
um, we're strong alone as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
But there's a reason that this idea of being isolated from others is so jarring to us. It's not natural to our existence as human beings. So it's okay to tap into community. It's okay to say that you need help. It doesn't weaken you. It actually shows your strength. It actually shows that you are conscious, you are considerate, and you recognize that you need support, and you're not afraid to reach out and get that support. So, and I can keep talking about this forever, but I won't.
Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. I have a different question for you. Um, I know in our introduction in your bio, part of your research talks about oppression of African Americans, and so I want to talk about your experience in court, what you specialize in, and to address within those two frameworks, why do we criminalize mental illness, and what could be done to stop that?
Okay. Yeah, I think sort of pointing out the issue of looking at one's mental health from a wellness model versus within the legal context of whether someone's insane and using that as a defense. That people use the terms synonymously, if you will. So, like if you're saying someone's insane from a layperson standpoint, that's not the same thing as someone using an insanity defense. And so, I
Yeah.
think in terms of one of the things that the work that I've done over the years, and really, particularly in my earlier years, I probably spent the first decade of my career not doing treatment, intentionally doing evaluation services. There were so few people of color in the court system, and for a while, I don't think I knew of any other African American 604B experts, people who were being appointed by the judge to serve as an expert to render opinion so that the court could then make a determination. Um, and so, uh, so I think in terms of saying to people that it's powerful for you to share your story. So, in terms of giving information that allows the professional to determine one, whether or not you have some mental health issue where we're recommending that you get support for to address that, in addition to then thinking about whether or not this has implications or will be a mitigating circumstance that you want to bring into the court matter to help you in some kind of way, reduce your sentence, or or yeah, lessen it in that kind of way. And I think in terms of helping people to understand, however, if you're going to make your mental health an issue, then you don't have any control over what they're going to do with that information. So I tell people to be very clear that if you're going to open up this can of worms, that you then won't get to pick and choose, oh, I want my therapist to share this or not that. They're going to subpoena your records, and then they're going to comb through those records and look for things that exist that support their argument. And so as an expert, as a 604B expert, I like the work where I was appointed by the judge, because for me that was more of a neutral position. So although attorneys would call me and ask me to work for their client's case on their behalf, I tended to turn down those kind of assignments. I'd like the neutral role where I like to be the finder of uncontaminated data. So I
Mm-hmm.
want to find the information. I'm going to do the same thing that I do with one side with the other side, and then I'm going to put all that together and then see how the information that I found then helps to inform decisions that need to be made according to the law. And so I make that distinction because you could hire me to tear apart your, I don't even know what the legal language for that. What's the other side called? So
Oh, the defense.
the defense, to
Me.
tear
Me.
apart. Yeah, you're the defender. Yes, right. You did that work for a long time. So that, yeah, you could use a mental health professional in that kind of way. I like getting involved in things that are going to help somebody. And so sometimes winning is not necessarily helping someone. And so that's part of the reason why I would kind of shy away from working from one side or the other, because we all know that you can take knowledge and do with it what you will. And
Whatever. Yeah. I so appreciate that. And the term that is sitting with me right now is uncontaminated data, because to bring uncontaminated data into a system that is already contaminated is very frustrating, to say at the least. I'm going to not use my holy language. It's very frustrated in the least. And from the defense standpoint, I'm glad you brought up the difference between scientific / medical definitions and legal definitions. Because what I tell people, and we're still legalese, so we're going to talk about terminology now, is just because Dr. Clark and Dr. Witherspoon say that someone passes all of the assessments and all of the checkpoints to understand what is happening in court or to testify, that is a different form of analysis than legally. Okay. It is not what is medical is also legal. That's not always the relationship. In the way when we talk about insanity, please understand that when someone says that they are insane, a medical definition of insanity is completely different from a legal definition of insanity. And every state has its own standard to describe what insanity is and is not. And for practical purposes, what I want our community to know is just because you have a mental illness, that does not mean that you are insane. There are a lot of people who are on probation or who are serving time in a prison or a jail that live with mental illness. However, it did not rise to the level of insanity, meaning it did not legally excuse them from being held legally accountable. So what happens sometimes is that you may have someone who is, quote unquote, we say in the community, and what they're doing is they're having a mental episode but there is nobody around to recognize it, acknowledge it, or provide support. So then what happens is that mental illness gets labeled as criminal behavior. And unless you are guided to the court call of mental health court, you are in regular court like everybody else. And so you have to have the type of attorney that is able to recognize the support that you need in the real world as well as in court. Because what happens is if clients who live with mental illness are being arrested, if they are giving a statement, if they are deemed to be combative, because in my experience, most of my clients who live with mental illness were also charged with resisting arrest because they felt that someone was coming against them and they felt the need to defend themselves. They are charged with aggravated battery, usually to a police officer, which is a felony. And so we need to start focusing on how to not just decriminalize, but completely abolish the belief and the practices that punish people solely because they live with mental illness. At least that has been my experience. Do either one of you all want to speak to that? Nobody? Okay.
You said it all. You said it all.
Well, I just know that when I have had meetings, I don't now because I am retired from being in court, but when I have had meetings with clients as well as clients' families, first of all, it is very difficult to try to galvanize all of the information about a person in a short period of time. Every time they've been incarcerated, every time they have been diagnosed, every time they have had an episode. And Dr. Witherspoon, you are correct, because you can use that uncontaminated data, but your perspectives are different. Mm-hmm. So for the prosecutors in general do not want the defendant to be incompetent or insane, because what happens is that there is lesser accountability to that person, even though that person may have murdered, two people, even though they may have set a church on fire. It's that mental capacity where it's like most times, I'm generalizing, most times prosecutors want you to be competent and they want you to be sane, which the law presumes both. The law presumes that you are competent. The law presumes that you are sane until and unless there is a legal showing otherwise. And that makes sense, because if you are the victim or the complainant of a crime, you want someone to be held accountable. Okay. On the defense side, which is my side, you have situations where what was misunderstood as a mental breakdown or outbreak or something to that nature, it's misinterpreted by the police officers that arrive, or is ignored by the police officers that arrive. And I am thinking now about the cases of Quintonio LeGrier in Chicago, where he swung a bat as part of, I think he was manic or going through an episode, and the police killed him at 19 years old. Okay. We have recently the case in New York of Daniel Prude, who was killed December 23rd of this year. And he was walking through the streets naked and he was high on PCP. The officers threw him down to the ground, put a bag over his head, put their knees in his neck, killed this man, and then there was just the decision from the grand jury not to indict or hold criminal charges against the police officers that did that. So my question to you is real short on this one. What do we do with that? What do we do with that?
I'll respond first. So it becomes really important in this day and age where you can, readily name off several different individuals that appear to have, some injustice has happened against them. And so part of what many people are experiencing is, feeling uh, disempowered, if you will. What am I supposed to do? I can't go up against the police, or, I can't fight against this system. And so it becomes really important that you personally think about engaging in small acts of empowerment. So you may not be the person to be out picketing and marching, and maybe that's not your thing. But you need to think about ways in which you can take small steps to empower you and the people within your circle to move into action, to make a change. And so for some people, that could be being a voice for someone else. So as you think about where you are in your professional careers, for those of you who love social media, that could be a whole social media campaign, so that you intentionally once a week make sure you share some information that's going to be empowering to someone else. That whether you're tweeting or whatever you're doing, however you're posting. But yeah, think about ways in which you can engage in small acts of empowerment. So often people are coming to us within the counseling realm where, yeah, they're feeling helpless, they're feeling hopeless. And so it's sort of interesting, how I sort of talked about, in my career, I've done mostly evaluation work. And so I'm selective about the kind of treatment cases that I get involved in. Thank goodness I have a team of people who are very compassionate and caring, and, they can express empathy. You come see me when you want a disruptor. Yeah, you mad about something, and unfortunately you're not coping with it well, and you're doing things to hurt yourself instead of help yourself. You want to come see me then, because yeah, I'm about strategizing, I'm about empowering you to find what in fact you can influence in this particular situation, and whether that's on a small scale, that's where we're going to start. Yeah, to
Yeah.
empower yourself.
Absolutely. The leading into what you're talking about, empowering, Dr. Clark, there are some terms that we, and I say we, the community, we use in passing that may actually be oppressive in its use and its impact. One example that I will say transparently I have used is back in the day, if Chicago weather rained and then it snowed 2 inches and then it all melted and then the sun was shining while it was raining, I would say, okay, this weather is very bipolar. Okay. And not mean any type of harm. What I am trying to say is that the weather is switching seasons. But we are now in a community and a society where we are using terms that may be oppressive without us knowing that they are. Can you speak to any examples that you can think of, and how do we walk that back? How do we make sure that we are not being oppressive in our language as it relates to mental health and wellness?
Yeah, you kind of jumped into my mind for a second, because that's what I was thinking. I'm like, it's about defining things. So I love that. Oh, and part of the reason I was smiling when you were describing that is because I do that same thing. I do that same thing, particularly with Chicago weather. So how do we stop using language in an oppressive manner? It's important to understand the definitions of things. So one of the things I was reflecting on as you were talking about, excuse me, the stigma of a mental health label and how that is criminalized, and how people, unfortunately, that Black and brown people in particular are being killed because of that, is this idea of affluenza, and how it looks on with our privileged white counterparts. And part of that is, it's understanding that this language is set up and designed to fit into an oppressive system. So, it's important, one, to characterize. You have to have definition for stuff. We have to name things. It's important for us to be able to identify. But also recognize that it isn't who you are. We often encourage in the mental health space using person first language, And I'm very intentional about that just in everything that I do in my common speech. So that's one way to stop using oppressive language. Use person first language as opposed to the homeless, someone who's experiencing homelessness, as opposed to bipolar. They're bipolar. They're experiencing or suffering from bipolar disorder. I even go as far as instead of using the language of mental health disorder, it's a mental health challenge. If it's a disorder, I'm looking at it as an illness, and it's like, man, can I ever overcome this? If it's a challenge, it's something that I can work to overcome. It's something that I can get support with and then heal from. So understand the definitions of these things. Bipolar disorder is something that's more common to our, everyday language now because of the media. But it isn't something that it's a serious disruption of someone's brain chemistry, for lack of better words. I'm not a neuropsychologist. I admire neuropsychologists, but did not get my degree in that. So I don't have all the technical language for it. But there are chemicals in the brain that are disrupted, highly disrupted, when you're challenged with bipolar disorder. And so understanding that that's what you're saying when you're using that phrase. And then also keeping in mind that a lot of these labels, these disorders, are used against us in particular because we live in this oppressive system. So knowing that, sometimes that's enough for me to go, no, I don't want to use the oppressive language against me or against someone that's in my community. And, that, again, it helps to stop that language. So educating yourself on it and then recognizing that it can be used as a strategy to continue to oppress us. So just being mindful of it in that sense.
Okay. Dr. Witherspoon, it's important for us to call a thing, but how do we make sure that we are not, as your research was steeped in, how do we make sure we are not continuing the toxicity and the oppression?
Yeah, I think that the point that Dr. Clark made, was that you should know what you're talking about. So people are using terms and using them inaccurately to sort of stereotype and stigmatize individuals. So oftentimes, particularly, in the media, if someone calling someone narcissistic, because we heard that a whole lot for the last 4 years, right? Or if somebody's, calling someone bipolar or that sort of thing. Those are clinical terms, and so we should not be diagnosing people in the media. I don't work for free, so you won't hear me calling anybody by any clinical language. I don't volunteer that kind of stuff. So that's the one thing. And you should ethically be in a professional relationship with somebody, and they understand that they're consenting to an evaluation. And so I think as professionals, sort of gently reminding people that, that's actually a clinical term. And so I'd rather hear people focus in on the behaviors. And I say this all the time to people who call in, wanting a psychological evaluation, wanting to know, do I have a diagnosis? How is that going to help you? So, if you made it to 45 years old and you have not been diagnosed with ADHD before now, having that label in your repertoire of things, I don't know how helpful it's going to be. Describe to me the behaviors and the thoughts and the actions that are problematic to you, and how are they creating impairment? And let's focus on that. We can work with that. So if I give you this label and you're not going to do anything with it, more than likely this is not going to be helpful to you. And so, yeah, really trying to make sure that people, I'm smiling because I'm thinking about what I used to say to my son all the time. Use your words. I need you to accurately describe what is happening. Yeah,
Yes.
What's wrong?
I do that to my daughters. Where I be, hey, babe, use your words. Especially if your mama's an English major, use your words. We get that's what they're there for.
Something and if I will, that oftentimes when we're stereotyping or where we're using categorical labels, we're trying to take a shortcut, right? We're trying to take a bunch of information and put it on a label that we think that everybody knows what this label means or what image it conjures up. And so one of the things we know about stereotypes, although they were true for somebody, they're not true for everybody. And then we start generalizing it to too many people. So yeah, I encourage people.
Absolutely. I have two more questions, and then while I'm asking these questions, we have these beautiful, educated, real. I was almost getting ready to cuss. We have these beautiful queens who are on here. Make sure that if you have any questions, I've been seeing your comments. If you have any questions that you wish to ask for experts, this is the time to put it in the comments section. My first question is, what is one thing you wish the public would know about either your profession or mental health and wellness? What is one thing that you want us to know that you don't think we know?
What's sort of coming to mind for me is that seeking professional help is not something that you only do when you're in crisis.
Mm,
So if people would know that you can seek services, really that it's an act of affirmation. That yeah, you don't have to be in crisis, you don't have to be falling apart. That you really want to be proactive and not reactive in supporting your mental health.
hmm So be proactive and not reactive. That's what you want us to know. What about you, Dr. Clark?
Yeah. That, and I'm borrowing a quote from a relative right now. Healing is the next revolution. Um,
Mm,
that, being mindful about your healing is a good thing. It's not, people don't just come to us because, they don't have to, because something is wrong. That it's, to piggyback off of what Dr. Witherspoon said, it's a revolutionary act to focus on and be conscious of one's wellness. And by doing that, you are doing something revolutionary and impactful, not only just for yourself, but for the community as well.
hmm Okay. So now I will open it up to you, Dr. Witherspoon, and you, Dr. Clark. Is there anything that you want to provide as we close that we have not discussed? Is there anything that either of you want to say that we have not discussed? Because, we only had an hour. Um, and this really could be a week long thing. But what is one thing, one takeaway, if you will, that you want the viewers to know or to remember?
I'll go ahead and jump in. Um, the one takeaway for me, that I would like the viewers to remember and, keep in mind and be conscious about is that this healing is communal. There is healing that can be done in community, and it's important for us to be intentional about not only our own healing. We start with ourselves, but also about the well-being of others and how we contribute to the well-being of others. And so, doing things like acts of kindness, doing things like checking in with folks, doing things to be intentional about improving the well-being of those in your community. And communities can be small, they can be large, it can be who's in your household, it could be who's in your neighborhood, it can be at your job, the list goes on. Social media, but yeah, being intentional about making this healing thing, this holistic healing thing, community oriented. That's the one takeaway that I'd like to leave.
All right, thank you. Dr. Witherspoon.
My takeaway message would be find you a place, at least one place, where you feel a sense of belonging. And so, unfortunately, for some people, that is sometimes not within your home. And so, the idea of social and emotional connection and a sense of belongingness.
Uh-oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Your mic is not connected now. Still can't hear you. You was about to say something really powerful.
Right.
You about to say something really powerful because then your mic turned off. And I don't know what happened. And I don't have the technology to figure it out. There you
There it
go.
goes.
Oh, there you go. Now we can't hear you again.
No, we can't.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
How about now? No. So this is what
There
we
we
gonna
go.
do. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Talk away.
Okay. All right. I hooked up my computer speaker to see if that would work.
Oh, okay. Good.
All right, so I'm a little closer to the screen. Now, I was on my soapbox. I'm not sure where I was going, but what
Start from the
I
beginning.
was talking about social, right, social belonging, so a sense of belonging. I believe that's where I was getting ready to go with that. But yeah, the idea that it's very important that the research is clear in terms of the correlation in your physical and your mental health and feeling connected and belonging to somewhere. And so I'm talking about on multiple levels. So, on a spiritual level, you've got to connect with people who share your beliefs and believe in what you believe in. At work, so even though I can be a handful and there are times where people probably don't want to talk to me or kind of, send me to voicemail because they don't feel like talking to me. If I need them, they'll be there for me. And so this idea that they feel connected to me and they care about me, even if you don't always necessarily agree with me or like what I'm doing. And so I encourage everybody to seek that out. Have a place where you belong.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad we got you back. I agree, Kelly. Yes, fix it, Lord. Because we come against the internet and it's as Mary J. Blige would say, hateration and holleration as it relates to trying to get this information out. So one thing that has been in the comments is how can we get in touch with you? How can we get in touch with you?
So for me, you can. The best way is email. So I don't know if
Okay.
you can type that
I'm gonna
in.
type it out as you said. Go ahead.
Okay, it's Dr. M. Clark at niashouse.com.
Okay. All right. And
Send the
I'll make
email, send your
sure.
questions, comments.
Yeah, I'll make sure that when I post this, I will have your information also in the comments. Dr. Witherspoon, how can we keep in contact with you?
The best way is to go to my website, which is help-llc.org. So there's a place about appointments. So if you're not necessarily looking for services, but you're looking for more general information, consultation, or you're trying to get directly in contact with me, there's a contact button. And so you can actually fill out that button and that information is going to go directly to me. So the contact button on the website.
Okay.
So basically,
All
I
right.
screen everything before I then send it the right way. So.
Okay, so I'm going to put that in the chat as well. I hope I'm putting in here what I'm putting here. help-llc.org. That's what you are speaking to.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to put that in the chat as well. And I just want to thank you both so very much. Of course, there's never enough time to really go into what it is that we need to discuss, but I did want us to at least try and unpack a few things that we are talking about in our individual and communal conversations. So just thank you all for taking time. I know you are both very busy women, but from my heart to yours, I love you both and I thank you all so much. So hopefully we can continue this dialogue and make sure that both our presence and our language speak to liberation and speak to freedom and not to oppression. So thank you all so much. I'm going to thank you. I'm going to mute you all, but just stick on for a moment. There are just some housekeeping rules that I need to address. So we have all of the experts who are here, Black women who are learned, who are trained, and who are service leaders, servant leaders, if you will. And so we just wanted to provide this platform to kind of talk about, some things. If you wish to stay in contact with me, you can do so by emailing me at legaleazeplease@gmail.com. I do check all of the emails. So if you ever want to schedule myself or anyone to speak virtually, not in person yet, but speaking virtually, getting on the internet, we can have that conversation. If you wish to continue to follow Legaleaze Please, then please follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Twitter. And what are the handles? I'm glad you asked. Facebook is Legaleaze Please. Okay, Legaleaze Please. On Instagram, it is Legaleaze_please. Legaleaze_please. If you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, this is the way to do it. You go to bit.ly/Legaleaze Please. And please not just watch on YouTube, but also subscribe. And that will also allow you to tap into prior episodes that we have done. If you want to tweet, I'm also on Twitter. We also have one of the things that Dr. Witherspoon and Dr. Clark talked about is having self-care. And so we have a Legaleaze Please playlist that will speak to your spirit, speak to your soul, provide you with the information and the sounds that you need to get through the day. And if you want to add to the communal playlist, there is a playlist for you that will allow you to drop your song or your jam or your hit that you feel will be a blessing to others. And then if you want to join our Facebook group, that is a group that gets all of the tidbits, all of the goodies for Legaleaze Please first. Just go on Facebook and type in the community of Legaleaze Please. And then if you are approved in terms of your admission, or rather approved with your invitation, then you could just come on in. Okay. And then lastly, of course, as you heard Dr. Witherspoon say, she don't work for free. Okay. And so even though we are providing a service, please understand that there is still a financial cost that comes in making sure that with each and every time that we come in front of you, we are getting better and better and better and more professional. So Legaleaze Please, we want to be having scholarships for people. We want to have webinars. We want to have different paraphernalia so that Legaleaze Please is a movement. It's not just a moment. We want to empower others with language, with access to language, and with language that we can understand so we can share with others. So thank you so much for that. We thank you for your support. And this is the end of our time together. Join us in a week or so, where we will come back and we will talk more about the integration and intersection of law and. This is your High Noon High. I'm Natasha Robinson. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.